Yo, so guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we have another NBA draft centered type of video. It's going to be tier ranking or tier listing every single prospect in the NBA draft. Make sure to like and subscribe, go into the comment section below, submit your video ideas, and let's get right into it. Starting off, here are the tier lists or spots that we have these players to go into. First is All-Star potential. I'm going to be honest, there's only going to be one guy here. It's a guy that I think will be an all-star in the future. Next, we have his good starter. Then we have specialist slash role player, a guy that comes in and does his job. Then we have a bench piece slash a guy with a low ceiling. We have a raw prospect slash a bust prospect. And then we have the bottom tier. Yeah, guys that just I don't think will turn out to be great NBA players. I'm actually going to change this last tier, or actually first tier, from all-star potential just to all-star, because I think there's some guys that are going to be in the good starter tier that are also going to have all-star potential, probably around half of them. So I'm actually just going to have the all-star tier for strictly NBA players that I think will end up being all-stars. Starting out, we have Creighton Baylor Shireman. I think he's the perfect candidate for this middle tier. It's a specialist tier. I think you can make a great case that this guy's the best shooter in the draft class. I think you could argue between him, Jared McCain, Reed Shepard, and Don't Connect. All of those guys have great shooting upside and are great shooters right now. And I think down the line, Bear Shireman can be a great bench piece that can come in and score the basketball right away from beyond the three-point arc. He's a great guy for that tier in the specialist. Next up, we have Devin Carter. I'm not sure if I want to put him in good starter or maybe specialist because I think he can come in, buck it up on the defensive side of the ball for sure. I think I'll place him in good starter for right now. But down the line, I might move him down to specialist. But for right now, Devin Carter's going to be in good starter. He's one of my favorite prospects in this year's draft. I think he has a great all-around game. His defense is what excites me most, and the fact that he almost averaged 9 rebounds per game as a 6'3" point guard in college. Next up, we have Dylan Jones. I think he's a pretty easy guy to throw in this bench piece slash low ceiling. Yeah, he just doesn't have that high of a ceiling. He played, 4 or 5 years in college, and it's just looking like him being, 6'4", small forward slash power forward. How often does that work at a high level in the NBA? Not a lot. So he's just going to have to muck it up on the defensive side of the ball. Something similar to what I can see Devin Carter do, but also use his physicalness and his athleticism, to get buckets in the paint. And I think Dylan Jones can do that. I just don't imagine him being a future all-star in the league. Next is Bub Carrington. I think he could be a good starter. I think there's a great chance Bub Carrington is a starter or at least a lottery pick in this upcoming draft class. I think he has one of the highest potentials. Him being a 6'5" combo guard slash wing is going to help some team or whoever picks them. If it's the Miami Heat at pick 15, I think that'd be a great pick. I also like possibly the Bulls at 11. I also like the Thunder at 12. I think there's a lot of places where Bub Carrington could come in right away and succeed. I just want to see him get minutes right away because I think he can make a great impact on whatever team he goes to. Next up is Don't Connect. I think he's also great for that good starter role. I think maybe you could throw him in the specialist role, but I think he'll be more than a shooter when he comes into the NBA. He was great NBA or a great player in college. He was an all-around player. In the NBA, can he be more of a specialist type of three-point shooter? Maybe. I just think that he's going to have the athleticism, something that a guy like Bear Shireman doesn't have, which kind of separates him from that specialist tier to the good starter tier. Next up is Cody Williams. I mean, I like Cody Williams. I think he's a fine prospect. He was actually one of my favorite, if not my favorite, college prospect to watch last season at Colorado. I've kind of been switching between him, Kel'el Ware, and Stephon Castle. They're just all guys I love to watch last year. I'm going to throw him raw slash more bust. It just seems offensively, his confidence is not too high. He turns the ball over somewhat when he drives into the paint. His three-point shot was okay last season, except he barely shot them, so I'm not sure how much you could base off of that. And if we want to go even farther back, during his AAU days and high school days, he wasn't a great three-point shooter. So I'm not too confident on that aspect of his game. But if he really buys into that defensive side, uses his wingspan, uses his speed, uses his strength, even though he could definitely throw on a couple more pounds, I think he could be a solid NBA player. Can he be an all-star? Probably not. But I think at this current moment, if his offensive game isn't going to be good at the NBA level, it's going to be hard for me to put him past the raw slash boomer bust type of tier. Next up is Harrison Ingram. I'm going to be honest, I think I'm going to throw him into this bottom tier. He does a lot of things okay, and that makes him a solid player, so maybe you can argue a bench slash low ceiling, and I think I could potentially put him there. But I think for right now, it's going to be a bottom tier. Like I said, he does everything okay. He's a pretty good defender. I wouldn't say he's amazing. He's improved three-point shooter. That's something I could definitely say. But other than that, I'm not so sure how confident I am of Harrison Ingram on the next level. Next up is Ulrich Chomche. perfect guy for raw slash boomer bust. He's a guy who came into the NBA draft combine and kind of killed it. Was great during the scrimmages. He measured pretty good as well, and he's definitely going to be a draft pick. I'm just not sure. Wait, Zachary Sachet is next. Welcome to the good starter tier. I passionately believe that Zachary Sachet will not be a future All-Star. Next up is Bronny James. Sorry. Would Bronny James be a draft pick if his father's name was not LeBron James? I'm not gonna say no, but I think there's no shot that he would have declared his name into the draft if his dad was not LeBron James. If his dad was just some random guy, he'd probably still be playing college basketball. I think that's fine. But yeah, realistically, if his dad was not LeBron, we would not see him in this draft class. Next up is Montas Buzelis. I could honestly see him being a future All-Star, but I think that would be his absolute ceiling. So for right now, kind of just want to throw him in the good starter tier. Yeah. If he gets that three-point shot, though, Matas Buzelis will be extremely scary at the next level. Next up is Ariel Huckporty, a guy that I've been watching a little bit more recently. I don't know how well his game will, get to the NBA level. So for right now, I think I'll throw him. Actually, no, welcome to the bottom tier. I don't know if he's gonna get drafted. I kind of hope he does because I like his game. I just don't know how well it'll translate. So for right now, welcome to the bottom tier. I could potentially move him though. I'm not so sure. Next up is Pacom Dadiet, perfect guy for the raw slash boomer bust tier. It's exactly what he's going to bring for you. Great athleticism, nice three-point shooting, nice slashing, but at the end of the day, will he be efficient enough for the next level? Will his game translate to the next level? I'm not sure yet. Ethan Almanza is someone who who's not declaring for the NBA draft, but I think if he was in the NBA draft, I'd throw him into that specialist tier. He's going to be a solid defender. I think he's great at blocking shots, but I also think on the offensive side of the ball, he could be a great lob threat for you. He'd also have good touch around the rim, so for that reason, I'll throw him into the specialist. Next up is Kel'el Ware. Welcome to the good starter tier. Like I said, one of my favorite prospects last year in college basketball. He's such a versatile player, especially at 7 feet tall. He's a good shooter. He has great touch around the rim. His post game's solid as well. Defensively, he can get a little bit better. I'd like to see him, block more shots specifically. But if we're going into next season and he could get on a solid team who's looking to make a playoff run, maybe we can see him have a Derek Lively type contribution to a solid NBA team. Max Christie is next. Welcome to the raw slash boomer bust tier. One of the youngest prospects in this year's draft. He has great intangibles, but I'm not so sure how efficient he'll be at the next level. I'd love him to be because I like his game a lot, but I'm just not so sure about him. Next up is Nikola Topic. It's kind of crazy, right? If I put him into this bench piece slash low ceiling, I don't think he'll be a future All-Star. I don't know if he'll be a good starter. And matter of fact, I think I'm going to make a new tier. I made a new tier called Limited Upside, and Nikola Topic, you will be the first guy in the Limited Upside tier. I don't see him being a future All-Star. His game's just a little bit too slow for the NBA, and I don't think he has that type of Luka Doncic type of game where he can slow the game down for himself, or he can slow the game down for the entire whoever's playing in the game. I think more so it's just going to be him not adapting to the high speed of the next level. AJ Mitchell's next. You're a perfect guy for the bench piece slash low ceiling. I think will be a fine backup point guard for the future. Next up is Adem Bona, and I'm actually going to throw him in this specialist tier. Adem Bona is not big. He's about 6'8" at the big man position, but he's able to catch lobs. He's a great defender. He has insane athleticism, and he's insanely strong as well. So if he's just going to be a solid bowling ball going from one side of the court to the other side of the court, blocking shots, setting screens, diving for loose balls, I could see him being a great specialist in the NBA. Next up we have is Tyler Smith. There's a couple places I could put this guy in. You could argue maybe a raw slash boomer bust, but I think I'm going to throw him into that specialist tier. Him just having the opportunity to be a stretch four at the next level who plays solid defense on the other side of the ball, but's able to sit in the corner, hit the shot, but also possibly guard 5 on the other side of the ball. That makes me pretty excited, so I think he'll be a fine specialist in the NBA. Next up is Rob Dillingham. Maybe I put him in specialist as well as just a absolute bucket off the bench. Him being only 6'2" or 6'1", excuse me, kind of want me to deter him a little bit from that good starter tier. But when we look at a guy like a Jamal Crawford or a guy like Lou Williams, who was elite off the bench for NBA teams, giving them very solid scoring, I can kind of see Rob Dillingham doing that for the future. Can he be a good starter? Maybe, but I kind of see his future being a very solid backup point guard though. Next up is Terrence Shannon Jr. Probably throw him into that bench slash low ceiling. He was a great scorer in college, and shout out to you for beating the allegations. But I'm not sure how much of the time he's going to have the ball in his hands to get the same looks he got in college. He's going to be asked to hit his open threes. He's going to be asked to play solid defense, and I think Terrence Shannon's able to do that. I just would not consider him to be more of a specialist or even have limited upside in this year's NBA draft. Next up is Juan Nunez. I only place I've seen Juan Nunez being mocked in an NBA mock draft is ESPN. I don't think he gets drafted, but if more guys are going to continue saying that he's going to get drafted, I guess I could throw him in there. But right now, he's a bottom tier guy for me pretty easily. He's a solid passer, but that's really it. Next up is Antonio Reeves. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to throw you into this bottom tier as well. Yeah, he's not an amazing defender. He's a solid scorer, but we've seen so many times solid scorers come from college and really just not being able to find their footing in the NBA. You're going to go in the bottom tier, unfortunately. And now it's time for my all-star. Welcome, Alex Sarr. Best defender in this draft. No, I'm not going to say that. I'd say Ryan Dunn's a better defender than him. But his interior deterrence in that paint, him being able to block shots, him being able to get guards out of the paint, and even on the offensive side of the ball as well. If he's able to hit the three-point ball, I think Alex Sarr can 100% be an all-star. He has the highest potential in this draft class, in my opinion. And I also believe that he's going to be the best player out of this draft class. Next up is Kyle Filipowski. Welcome to the bench / low ceiling tier. It's just my opinion. No hard feelings. There's not too much to say about that one. Just don't love his game. Next up is PJ Hall. I mean, yeah, not too much to say about him right there. I think he's going to be in the bottom tier. He's actually pretty athletic for what people give him credit for, but I just don't see him getting solid rotational minutes in the NBA. Next up is Stephon Castle. I think he's a perfect guy for that good starter tier. Yeah, he's just going to be a very solid perimeter defender. If he gets that three-point ball to drop, I think he can have potential all-star tier as well, but that's a big if. Next up is Cam Spencer. I'm not going to say he's good enough for me to throw him into that specialist tier, so I guess we'll say bench piece / low ceiling, but if he does get minutes at the NBA level, it'll just be because of his three-point shooting. So you could argue that he's in that specialist tier, but I'm going to throw him in bench piece for right now. And I'm actually going to make another tier. It's going to be high-end role player. I just don't think Rob Dillingham matches some of these guys in the specialist tier, so I'm going to throw him up one more time. And that's going to be the same thing with my next guy here in the Jared McCain. I just think he could be a bucket off the bench, or even if he starts like a Rob Dillingham, I think he could be a bench player, or if he can start, they're just going to be bucket getters. Rob Dillingham, obviously more of an on-ball player than what we see out of Jared McCain, but both of them are going to be able to average upwards of 15 points per game in the NBA. Next up is Jamal Shead. I think I'll throw him in bench piece / low ceiling. I mean, I don't really have any problems with Jamal Shead. He's going to be a good defender at the next level for sure. He's a very feisty, ferocious player, and if he ends up with the Miami Heat, teams better watch out. Next up is Ron Holland. I'm going to throw him into that good starter tier. I think he's another guy like a Matas Buzelis, like a Stephon Castle, that I could see potentially be an all-star, but for right now, I'm not going to say that he is. And I'm actually going to throw Devin Carter into this high-end role player tier as well, and a Bub Carrington. They're just two guys that can maybe see be very solid backup guards at the end of their career, but I'm not so sure if they'll be great starters. And I'm also going to switch Tyler Smith from here to high-end role player. And I think I'm going to put Nikola Topic in specialist for right now. See, I kind of like that. Nikola Topic, welcome to the specialist tier. We are going to be deleting the limited upside tier for right now. Next up, we have is Tyler Kolek. He's also going to be in that specialist tier. I think very similar to Nikola Topic, he's going to be one of the best playmakers, at least off the bench, we see in the league. There's really no fault to his game, maybe on the defensive side of the ball, actually. But offensively, he's a great passer, he's a solid shooter, and he can really get his teammates involved. I'd love to see him end up with the Suns at pick 22 to be able to dish the ball to guys like Devin Booker, KD, and Bradley Beal. Next up is Oso Higedaro. You could probably make a case for him to be a specialist, but I think right now I'll throw him into that bench piece / low ceiling. He's not a great defender, but he's a great passer, especially at that big man position, and he's able to catch lobs and has elite touch around the rim. Next up is Hunter Sallis. Is Hunter Sallis declaring for the draft? Hunter Sallis is actually returning to college, so similar to what we saw in Ethan Almanza, he won't get drafted, and if Alex Caravan's somewhere down here as well, again, he won't get drafted because he returns. But if I had to put Hunter Sallis somewhere, I'd probably put him in bench piece / low ceiling. I think he's going to end up being a solid player, but I also don't believe that he'll end up being a future starter or maybe even a future six-man. Next up is Johnny Furphy. I think he could be a great specialist in the league. If he's able to play solid defense on the other side of the ball, his three-point shot is going to 100% be there. And if he ends up going 18 to the Magic or maybe like 27 or 28 to the Timberwolves or Nuggets, he's going to be put in a great position. Next up is Nikola Jurisic. Honestly, welcome to the boomer bust category. I think Nikola Jurisic can be a very good NBA player, but at the same time, I think he might be a draft and stash player, and if he doesn't end up coming to the NBA and being a good player, then he's kind of going into that boomer bust category. Next up is Reed Sheppard. Right away, you're going to be a great starter, I believe. Great shooter, solid defender, solid passer. He does everything on the NBA floor good, or on the basketball floor good, and does everything. Or in 3-point shooting, he does that great. So if he's able to do that at the next level, he's easily going to be in that great starter tier. Next up is Jalen Tyson. I'm not sure if I want to throw him in the high-end role player or maybe the specialist, but I can kind of see him having the type of role that Josh Hart has, where he's able to grab rebounds and be aggressive on the offensive side of the ball. There was some stat of Josh Hart being like the most efficient fast break player last season. I can kind of see Jalen Tyson having a similar impact to an NBA team. Next up is Kobe Walter. I'm not sure if I want to throw him in Boomer Bust, but honestly, welcome to the Boomer Bust category. Yeah. If his defense isn't going to be great at the NBA level and he's not going to be efficient, honestly, I could see him kind of having a similar thing to maybe a guy like Max Christie or maybe a Pacome Dadiet. Guys that I think have high potential, but if they don't pan out, then I don't think they'll be great NBA players. Next is Tyon Grant Foster from Grand Canyon University. He did not end up declaring for the NBA draft, but if he did, I think he still is going to be a bench slash low ceiling player. You could argue maybe bottom tier, but what I saw in March Madness last year from him, he was very solid. Next up is Bobby Clinton. Perfect guy for the Raw slash Boomer Bust tier. He spent 1 year at Wake Forest, then he went overseas to play. He was not amazing at Wake Forest, but had his flashes. And last year, he was just really a solid role player for his team. So for that reason, he's going into the Raw slash Boomer Bust category. Next up is Pele Larson. I do like his game, but I think at the end of the day, I might throw him into that bottom tier. I mean, if I'm going to put Tyon Grant Foster and Hunter Sallis in this bench tier, I might end up throwing. I'm going to think about it. Alright, I'm going to keep Pele Larson in that bench piece tier, but I'm going to throw for the next guy, Jalen Bridges, into that bottom tier. I've watched him a lot to end this season. I don't know if his game's going to be that effective at the next level. I know he's an aggressive player, but it's going to be hard for him to find minutes right away for sure. Next up is AJ Johnson. Welcome to the Raw slash Boomer Bust tier. Similar to a Cody Williams, he's not too aggressive, and he has a very small frame, so I'm not sure how good he'll play at the next level. If he does put on some pounds, if he starts being more aggressive, maybe I could consider him on a much higher tier. Deron Holmes is next. Welcome to the high-end role player tier. I think this guy has Naz Reid type potential. I think their games are somewhat similar. I think Naz Reid definitely has more finesse around the rim. But on the defensive side of the ball, honestly, you can give it to Deron Holmes, and for that reason, he's going to go in the high-end role player tier. Next up is Donovan Clingan. Perfect guy for great starter. He's just going to be great. Or he'll be good, honestly. I don't know if he'll be an all-star. He probably won't be an all-star, but he's going to have great interior defense. Hopefully he develops good touch around the rim, and we know that shot blocking is insane, so he's going to go into that great starter tier. And I'm actually going to make another tier. It's going to be the high ceiling slash low floor tier. I'm going to throw Cody Williams in that tier. I'm going to throw Jacoby Walter in that tier. Just two guys that I think are very raw prospects, but I'm not so sure if they're guaranteed to be great NBA players. Next up is Tijan Salon. I think he's great for that tier. He's going to be very raw. Hopefully he goes to a team where he doesn't have to play too many minutes right away. A perfect situation will be the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he probably would not get rotational minutes at all. They can develop in the G League, and hopefully he ends up being a very solid NBA player. Next up we have is Justin Edwards. I think he's a very good fit for that raw tier. I don't love his game at Kentucky too much. He was very slow, but if he's able to hit that 3-point jump shot and solid on the defensive side of the ball, he could be a great 3-and-D player for an NBA team. Next up we have is Keyshawn George. I think he's a good guy to put into that high ceiling, low floor tier. He's already a good shooter, and he's a very solid defender. If he's able to put some more pounds on and buy into that defensive side maybe a little bit more, I can consider him to be a future good starter in the NBA. Next up is Melvin Ajinka. You're going into the bottom tier, unfortunately. Didn't love his game at France. A lot of people were saying that he had, or it was, when Tijan Salon, or not Tijan Salon, when Zachary Sachet, Alex Sarr, and Melvin Ajinka all played together, that Ajinka was playing the best. And I did watch that film, and I think he did overall had the best game. But I'm not so sure when we consider going into that next level. Will Melvin Ajinka or Ajinka, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, be a very solid NBA player? I'm not so sure. So maybe you could argue that raw tier, but I think I'm going to throw him into that bottom tier. Next up is Zach Edey. I think he's going to be a very good player to throw into that high-end role player tier, maybe even that specialist tier, but I think I'll throw him into the high-end role player. Yeah, I just don't see a situation where Zach Edey's bad. He's what, 7 foot? How tall is Zach Edey? 7'3", 7'4", something like that, maybe 7'5". I'm not exactly sure where he's listed at, but he's gonna grab rebounds. He's gonna get easy buckets in the paint. Will he be able to play defense? I'm not so sure about that. If he's going to be stuck in the paint, he's not going to be a solid defender. And we're going to have big man like Karl Anthony Towns, Victor Wembanyama, Naz Reid being able to stretch this man out of the paint, and it's just going to be hard to guard him. Next up is Jonathan Mogbo. I think I'm going to throw him into this low ceiling slash bench piece tier, but I could also see him end up being a specialist. But I'm going to throw him into that bench piece slash low ceiling tier. I think he definitely get minutes. I'm just not sure how much. Next up is Ryan Dunn. I think he's a perfect guy to throw into that specialist tier. Yeah, he's just going to be defensive specialist, block shots, guard the other team's best player potentially, and I think he'll have a solid NBA career. Next up is Kevin McCullough. Um, if there was like a perfect solid role player tier, I think I'd put him in there because he's not a high end role player by any mean. Like, he doesn't deserve to be in this tier. He's also not a guy with the highest ceiling. So maybe I just throw him into that specialist tier because he's not raw, but he's also not in the same tier of any of these bottom guys like Dylan Jones or AJ Mitchell. So for that reason, I'm gonna throw him into that bench piece, or I'm gonna throw him into that specialist tier. And I think I'm also going to throw maybe a Terrence Shannon Jr. in that specialist tier as well. That's just my opinion. Next up is Yves Missi. I think he's a guy that is raw, but I think he's the highest end guy on raw because he could be a great lob threat. He can be a great perimeter defense or interior defensive threat where he's able to block shots. So either you could argue him to be in this raw, or you could argue him to be in the high ceiling slash low floor. I just don't think he has the highest ceiling like guys of a Cody Williams, Jacoby Walter, Tijan Salon, or a Keyshawn Jordan. Next up is Tristan da Silva. I'm gonna throw him into that high-end role player tier for sure. Yeah, he's just going to be a very solid power forward in the league. He's gonna be able to play defense, hit the outside shot, hit the dribble pull up, hit the turnaround shots. There's just no big fault to his game. That's why I think he'll end up being a lottery pick come draft night. Lastly, we have Isaiah Collier. I'm gonna throw him to that good starter tier. I trust in Isaiah Collier. He is a lottery potential prospect for me. Unfortunately, it's not looking like that'll be the case, but I think Isaiah Collier will end up being a future NBA solid slash great starter. Now, before we end the video, I think I'm going to change some of these tiers, maybe add another one, and I'll show you guys what I have. So I'm actually not going to add another tier. Honestly, I'm pretty fine with what I have right here. Some maybe surprises or things that I'm going against the consensus would maybe be, just looking at this, maybe you guys think Tyler Smith is a little bit too high. Maybe you think he deserves to be in that high ceiling slash low floor, but he's one of my favorite prospects in this year's draft class. I could also maybe see, you can consider a guy like Cody Williams. Maybe you don't like him in that high ceiling, low floor. Maybe you think he's a guaranteed great starter. Something similar to maybe Jacoby Walter, Tijan Salon. I have Kyle Filipowski pretty low. It's just my opinion. I don't think his game will translate too well to the NBA level. And other than that, I think this is pretty uniform. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Go into the comments. Tell me what you think about this list. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.